but not really. So the last piece of the compass, which I think people naturally just do anyway. I think people, by the time they've been out with their partners, half of the trying of observation is experiments. But to get deeper into it, here we are, back down to details. They're real, concrete, like no longer fuzzy ideas, but real things that you can try. And they likely won't work. This used to be a very neat stack, and my daughter Maya said, "Why they look too perfect to be experiments," and so now they fall over. And they're green, as someone said. Like these are what really get you going. This is how you learn the most, right? You actually do something, you try it, with and for everyone involved. And it has to have real details: who, what, when, where, how, or you won't do it, right? It just stays an idea. So we're going to dig in, but first, this is the warm-up from the design packet. Think with your hands, go to the supplies, and just see what ideas they give you. Pull together anything that looks handy. Just grab one thing that seems like it would be useful. Maybe you can have this side of the table go first. Just go grab something that seems like it would be useful to your project. One of the ideas you have for your partner. Don't overthink this. Just grab something. You can take the whole bucket. Just grab one thing. And without overthinking it, let's just have one person say, how does that give you an idea for your partner? What could you try with this one object for your partner? All right. Someone's got something. Someone share. What's an experiment you could try? What's something, an idea that you got from an object? Anyone? One student. We'll just have this do it for now. And then the other folks can go later. But anybody on this side? What's one experiment? One thought that you had with this object you picked up? Austin? Like you say something? Yeah.
For me, I was thinking, because it's dealing with his ears and his hearing, I don't know what this would turn into necessarily, but something that would help, like, I just saw this and I thought of, like, one of those, can to can.
Oh, yeah.
Like, communication thing. So, like, just something that would help him hear sounds better, pick up sounds and magnify them.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah. So you could actually experiment with something like that, like using that as a hearing amplification thing. And this actually goes back to ideas, like picking up stuff gives us ideas and gives us things that we can try. So when you go out in this part of the project, we send you out with a bunch of stuff. Your team will pull together a bunch of stuff, and then we will put a bunch more stuff in your hands and make you take stuff out with you because you will somehow use it. So just take as much stuff with you as you can. Again, so this is ideas, but it's meant to say experiments. Design methods get us using these things again to explore both ideas and experiments. And so I think of an experimental continuum that corresponds to the cost of changes. Over time, as you know more details, you get into more and more details, it gets harder and harder to change things. So we want to start by just playing. When we first start making stuff, you're playing with this cup as a hearing device. You're just building things to learn about the challenge. Then, and lots of separate little things, nothing like that all fits together yet. Your prototype is the first time that you're building something to think through how it does all actually go together and work. A pilot is something that lives without you for a while. So to pilot means to go send something out into the world, in this case with your partner, to test it. Because ultimately, you're creating a product that's going to have to live in their lives without you for a longer period of time. And at that point, you're really building to the specifications that you have learned all along the ways. Some of you might know from Agile the notion of an MVP, a minimum viable product, which is sort of out here somewhere. We start out with what I consider an MVP, your most variable prototype about your most valuable parts of your thing, right? You're just focusing on what matters most and just making something that you can change really easily. It's focused on those key questions that we've been collecting as we go. It's fast, it's flexible. So ways to experiment to answer your questions. That's what matters. We're answering our questions. You can prototype anything, and you must prototype absolutely everything, or it doesn't work. That is what my MIT professor said. If you haven't tried it, it doesn't work. And so without going into a lot of details here, these are a bunch of pictures, mostly from IDEO, of ways of prototyping products, services, spaces, and interfaces. And as we'll do in sort of the play phase here is to create separate experiments around the interaction, the function, and the character, right? Playing with those separately is easier. It's much easier to make small experiments around each one of those things than trying to put them together, which we'll start to do in prototyping and piloting. This is one that I made really fast for a meeting. What if snack bags closed like a dry bag? I'll show that again in a minute. So the fastest way to do that is to experiment with existing stuff. Don't even make anything. Use stuff around you. Found objects. These are some writing pens and makeup pens that we used in a diabetes project to explore what the character of an insulin pen might be. And then here's that hacked object. Just added some hooks to a snack bag to see what if this was another way of closing it. This was before they put Ziplocs on bags to reclose them when you bought them. Given my age here. Same thing goes for digital stuff. You can grab, in this case, I was working with people who are doing educational software. They were kind of thinking about like, what should the title and character of an app be for math, and so they just grabbed a bunch of like logos and things off the web and showed them to people. And then also, what might some of the details? How might the game work? Ask a bunch of questions about existing things out there that are sort of things that you're kind of playing with, and learn a lot. Don't make anything if you don't have to. Then ways, how can you experiment with just the experience of your idea? Faking it till you make it. So this is one of my favorite videos. I don't think sound is unfortunately working very well, but I know it by heart, so I'm going to go ahead and add the sound. So, these are possible dance moves from Monster Maker, an existing app now. Starts. And the player, I touch the monster. He starts to move. Every time I touch, he does a different move. Just go for as long as I want. Every time I tap, another move. Touch the back button. And I'm done. Monster Maker. Can you see how this was done? Is it becoming apparent? So this is the Toy Studio 020 at IDEO. Just has this board, and when they're working with Children's Television Workshop and they wanted to send them a new idea for an app, they got behind the board. They used another phone to shoot the video. It's not high quality video, right? They used another phone to shoot the video, and they're like, "This is our idea, right?" And this is, I have this on my phone, and my kids love it. So not this. This is Adam, but the new one is very cute. So fake it till you make it. You can also draw out scenarios of what's happening. You can create scale models. There's all sorts of ways to just sort of walk through the experience with someone. Well, what if it worked like this? What if it went like that? Without actually doing it. And then more ways to experiment with products and services. These are a bunch of experiments for how to guide people through a hospital. And so ways to think about information and roles and things, a mirror on a gurney so you can see the person who's pushing you around and you're not just staring at the ceiling. To just make it more personal and more guided. And all this stuff is done really quickly, with a bunch of nurses, and eventually turned into, real stuff. But you can start to see how it would work. Some people do more interfacey stuff here, so I'm continuing to give those examples. Sort of more physical interfaces. Use paper prototyping for a defibrillator. Help people learn that, again, this is IDEO, that actually you need 1, 2, 3. It was originally 2 steps, and people are more comfortable with 1, 2, 3. And there's this extra step in there where you actually say, I'm ready, let's go. You actually tell people exactly where to put the pads. It actually doesn't matter where to put the pads. But in a moment of stress, people just want to know where to put the pads, so they don't have to think about it and feel like they could be wrong. They found that out here, not at this stage, which is a good thing. This is some of my prototyping around a Compass app. Okay. And then there's so many ways to start prototyping on screen. There's a ton of great apps for this. Here's a list of them that you can go find. I honestly use PowerPoint. You can use the animations to make all the buttons work and have things work like a real app, and it's something people already know. And so this is that same app in PowerPoint, but you can push on it. So the goals here were to find steps to try, small ones with real details so that you actually do it. Go grab real stuff. Decide when you're going to use it. Otherwise, I know you'll go to your observations and you'll talk for a long time. You'll finally get around to trying something and you wish that you started sooner because you learned so much by actually trying stuff. And focus on your most important questions. Keep questioning, keep wondering. Which brings us back to, anyone remember where it brings us back to on the compass? If you go back to, I guess, step 2. Observations, yeah. Back to observations. So we're back to the same tip. We were trying to find different sides and real details about what people do, say, think, and feel about our ideas and why. Yes, the truth, the good and the bad about it, and keep coming up with more good questions to push ourselves further. So we need ways to observe our experiments. And again, like letting go of judgment. Just got to hear what people have to say. So look, no sell. This is a used car salesman, right? We're not doing that. You're not selling your idea. Try as much as possible to just look at what people do with it. Try to say as little as you can. When it's rough at the beginning, you might have to say more. And no judgment. Whatever they do with it is right, because that's how they interpret it. You're going to learn from whatever they do. Ask. When they ask you questions, don't answer them. Ask them what they think. Oh, will it have a button that does this? I don't know. Should it have a button that does that? Is it going to stay green like this? I don't know. Should it stay green like this? Find out what they think. And then don't come with just one thing. They will never be honest with you, right? They'll be like, this is their baby. I don't want to say it's wrong. So come with multiple flexible options, go broad, and then go deep, right? Show them a bunch of stuff and then go deeper on the ones maybe that they actually like least, because you can learn some really interesting principles about why they didn't like that idea, why it didn't work for them. And then obviously go deeper on the ones that did work for them and understand. And together, add to it, evolve it. And then the most important thing is to ask a lot of why questions, right? So it doesn't actually matter that they didn't like that it was green. What matters is why. Because it's hard for me to see is different than, because I feel like it stands out and people would notice it, right? And then maybe you don't end up changing it to the color they said, but you do make sure that it's legible or that it's not too flashy. Back up from their ideas to the principles behind them. So in our projects, getting ready for design review 1, this is the kind of stuff that people do. They take just a whole bunch of stuff out with them. They experiment using stuff that's in the house already. Here's a laundry basket and I think her cane, and here's all of their ideas and just experimenting. She's stuck a piece of cardboard onto a stool. So here you are, oops, there it is, trying experiments around all 3 of your potential projects. So you experiment with all 3 before you pick one, and then you're drawing out of that, observations and then ultimately principles that could help guide each project, but also about the person. Oh, by experimenting, we learned, that not being flashy is something that's important to them in general. So I think I just talked about that. And so let's go down here. So we're looking for more deep observation and understanding and just resourceful, rapid experimentation. Just you tried a whole bunch of stuff that keeps deepening that understanding. You didn't just jump to one idea. So then you're going to go off to your projects now. And what we'd love you to do is, again, you're focusing on the smallest experiments you can try with real details, focus on your questions. And so to do that, focused, fast, flexible, come up with a list of questions. What are my questions about? How it might work, the function, how people might use it, what the character is, and then generate a bunch of possible ways you could experiment. And then, again, come up with a nice flexible discussion guide, plan to observe. What am I going to try, obviously, first in this case? And then as we do, what am I going to look at? What am I going to ask? How am I going to remember to ask why all the time? And so this is how you get ready to go out there and experiment with people. That's it.